Hey, what's up, everybody? Got another book review for you today. This one is very interesting. It's a great book. It's called The Serpent and the Rainbow, a Harvard scientist's astonishing journey into the secret societies of Haitian voodoo, zombies, and magic by Wade Davis. So I bought it on Kindle, and I think I got it from like a Reddit thread just randomly. It's a book from 1985, and this book delivered. I mean, it's like a phenomenal 5 out of 5. If you're interested at all, would highly recommend it. I am just going to flat out say I'm going to spoil all of it starting now. It's a book from years ago and likely won't read it if you're watching this, but I just want to share the information that's present in it. So, I mean, this book it's crazy. Let's start off. It talks about zombies and voodoo, and it's like a Harvard anthropology, sort of scientifically minded. He has some background in like biology and stuff, and he's going to Haiti on an adventure. Describes his first trip there in the 70s as a young guy, and then his big trip in the 80s. And it's so interesting for a variety of reasons. I didn't know the history of Haiti. I find it a fascinating place. I've been to the island, but I've been to Dominican Republic, which is on the other side, and I haven't been to Haiti yet. This book made me want to go. So it covers, what are zombies? Zombies were this, we know from popular culture, we know all the movies about zombies, but where did that come from? And it's a real thing. There were rumors that this author had heard about, that people had cast spells on other people when they have vendettas against them, and they bury them, and then those people rise up out of the grave and continue walking on, but they've lost their soul. And so the anthropologist said, what is the scientific reasoning behind this? And he did some research. It's written like an adventure novel. It is like real life Indiana Jones. I mean, it's so interesting. It's not over the top. It's very based and grounded in reality, and just goes into the whole history, because in order to find out about this phenomenon, you have to study voodoo. You have to study the rituals and the secret societies of the Haitian culture. You have to study their background, their cultural background. Why is it that they practice certain things unlike any other countries? Haiti is such an interesting place. It's got kind of a bad rap in the news because they have a lot of political corruption. There's kind of rumors that, it could have been U.S. backed, and we just don't know, that they went in and assassinated the president of Haiti recently. But, going back into what it is, the word zombie comes likely from the Congo word Nzambi, Nzambi, and Davis met a man, Claire, I don't know the name exactly. It doesn't matter. But this man claimed, he was an older man, and he kind of had like scars on his face, and he just kind of had a way about him, and he claimed he had been a zombie. So he had been buried like, decades prior, and he had, his experience was he had gotten to a family dispute with his brother and with his town, and then he had been buried, and he'd been given a secret like poison or something, and he'd been buried, and he stayed in the grave for 7 days. He felt his spirit rise up above the grave and kind of, astral projection looking down on his own gravesite. And then after a few days, he got himself out of the casket, and dug himself out. And he doesn't remember anything after that. But what he's been told is that he wandered around aimlessly, and he joined another colony of zombies, almost like to work on almost like a slave. And this was, years prior. But then over time, he had been scared to go back to his original town. And as it turns out, this is all verified. And the author goes into the background of how could this phenomenon have happened. There were, there's a deep dive into, if you want to be a physician in Haitian culture, you study Western medicine, sure, but you have to know what the voodoo and what the cultural, those are the people you're going to be serving. So you want to figure out, you have to be trained in both areas, in the strict medical sense of things, but also in all the other things. So, the author comes to find out that there's different ways this could have happened, and he finds out that it's a poison, including datura. So, these plants are mixed with like a spiritual practice. They're hallucinatory plants. They're found all over South America and obviously in Haiti. The author explains how, there's theories of how people could get into states of like death-like states, but then recover from it. So even to the point where there have been, in the book, at least 3 documented cases where Western physicians looked over a person that was claimed to be dead, and then for sure those people rose up days later. So how could this have happened? And he goes into, at the time, what were the actual symptoms of death? I mean, if you have someone who's not breathing, they get a ghostly pallor, they become gray, their skin, they look visibly dead. And so the author goes into all these stories of like kings back in the day would say, you have to chop off my head, they would decree this for after they die, or you have to wait 5 days. You can't just bury me after like 2 days or so. And he goes into the background of like, in the Victorian era, the practice was started that they buried people and they would put a string attached to a bell so that if, the person woke up spontaneously, they could ring the bell and the grave, the person who's managing the grave or whatever would come over and, free them or whatever. And that there's historical basis for all that happening. So yeah, that's interesting. Then the author goes into all the spiritualism, all the magic, the voodoo, the rituals surrounding it. And that was interesting to me. If you've seen anything on this channel, I want to know what people really believe in. So, the author explains death-like states, paralytic agents, including the Japanese blowfish. There's a whole literature of people that take one bite of a Japanese blowfish that's prepared slightly wrong, and these people experience paralysis for 48 hours, and then a lot of people die from it. Like I think one person had it on their plate in Japan, and they smelled it, and they became they had symptoms, but they were alive. Another person took one bite, chewed it, and then spit it out, and they became paralyzed for, I think it was up to 2 or 3 days, but they recovered. And then one person chewed one bite and swallowed, and they died within hours. So, he was sort of thinking about what could this agent be that causes these states. Turned out to not be the Japanese blowfish. It's a mixture of other like esoteric plants. But and he goes into the exact plants that they were. So, as it turns out, it's topically active. So the poison is, once the society has, and I'll go into more details on that, once the society is determined that this person is going to be sentenced to death unless their spirit fights the poison, they do a ritual and they place the poison outside on the ground so that it's activated when the victim walks over it, and then has the symptoms, and then they end up burying them for them to rise later. So getting into like religion and customs, this was so fascinating because the history of Haiti is you have people brought over from Africa, and this goes back to 1500s, 1600s. they brought their culture with them, the African voodoo from all over, and it got mixed in with Catholicism, with Christianity. And in 1791, one of the few successful slave rebellions actually occurred against the French. The French were the empire that took over Haiti. Napoleon and his brother-in-law, he kind of set, Napoleon's brother-in-law set him over there to kind of manage it. And the Haitian people revolted. And as a consequence, here 200 years later, in the cities, they still have sort of Western medicine, Christianity, churches, Catholicism, but then over this time, the roads leading out to the villages and the outskirts of the smaller areas, the rural parts, became much more of a folk religion, and they started practicing all sorts of things, and it all has its roots directly from Africa. But Wade Davis, the author, witnessed elements of Jewish Kabbalah, such as circles drawn on the ground, chickens being sacrificed, symbols, ecstatic dancing, drums, fire, secret handshakes and rituals that they would pass along with each other. And so, this all gets into, Western esotericism. So Masonic things, and these, for the Haitians, they believed that they were literally summoning higher entities, and it would take over their bodies, and they would ecstatically dance, and they believed that the author witnessed this happening. You could see a total change in people when they, during the ritual, someone who was kind of quiet would get enveloped with this spirit, and they would name the spirit. They said, "This is so-and-so that's inhabiting his body right now, watch." And the guy would do like impossible dances and be able to withstand pain. And then he would be able to pass it along to the next person, and then they would start doing, the same things. And so, that's just crazy. It's you could be a total, and I am a little bit like this, a total skeptic of this and go, okay, what's really happening? And there's kind of scientific explanations of it, but there's something about when people get into groups and they all collectively believe in something, that thing almost seems to become true. And so they all believe in the Loa, the spirit, and it is so ingrained in the culture there that everyone is following it. And so it has real effects. So I think that was part of the explanation of the zombie phenomenon and why it happens in Haiti and not other places. I talked about the poison, talked about the zombies, religious and religion and customs, use of dance, drums, altered states, with the sacrificing chickens, the history of Haiti, and there's a lot of secret, esoteric belief that was a divine. The Haitian slaves at the time truly believed, this is part of their oral tradition, coming to the time that the author is talking about this, that they summoned spirits to assist them in killing off the Blancs, the white men, and to the point where certain leaders had the spirit of war within them, and they would go onto the battlefield, and they believed with every ounce of their being that they were immortal, that they couldn't be killed, that any gunshot at them would miss or would not be able to kill them. And so they led the slaves, the followers, like along with them. And, the other people died, but, it was a bloody fight back and forth, but they ended up winning, and they overtook the French and, booted them out and became their own independent nation. This was passed down through the Bizango cult, Bizango, and there's all these mysterious stories. There's more in the book. I'm just highlighting the kind of the ones that stood out to me, and that's why they would follow their leaders even into death. A lot of hand symbols, and the author doesn't go into the specifics of what the hand symbols were, other than he has audio recordings of a public ceremony where they talk about the whole history of all these things happening up into the present moment. And even during the recording, he's got a cassette tape. The leaders even looked to him, because he's a white guy, and said, "Hey, are you recording this? Like, what is this for?" And Wade Davis had friends and in the area, Haitian locals. One person was a doctor and the doctor's daughter, and kind of translating for him, and they vouched for him and said, "No, this Blanc is a guest in our house, and this is a public ceremony, so Davis was not allowed in the secret parts of stuff. He just heard about that, but during the public village gatherings, they would talk about all these things and talk about the history of things. So he has this all very much documented, very much recorded. Goes into the Loa, which I mentioned, the spiritual nature, and that's where the serpent and the rainbow comes from, because that's their origin story, and kind of how they believe the spirit of man, the spirit of women coming together, what the rainbow means, what the serpent means, all that kind of stuff. So I talked about African and Western culture, getting, the author really got into the culture. He's drinking rum with the locals the entire book, and that was just entertaining, because you could tell he's genuinely interested, and he went there for like months at a time, and just describing the kind of barriers that he got into. He's trying to find out about this phenomenon, and he had to go deep into everything about Haiti, and he had, even halfway through, has to go back home for some reason to get more funding or whatever, and makes another trip back to Haiti. And then during that midway through the book, he gives the history of the Haitian rebellion, the fight for independence. And so I learned so much from this. Really clear, really well written. It kept me interested throughout the novel, or throughout the book. It's nonfiction, so it's not a novel. An interesting cultural look into the crazy phenomenon that happens throughout the world that none of us really knew about. So I love how it relates to my understanding of the world today. Synchronicities occur. As I'm reading this book, I end up talking to a couple people just at work, or just randomly, like, my wife and I went to a hotel, and we're talking to the guy who's running the counter. Turns out he's Haitian, and I just started talking about all this stuff, and just sort of, and kind of fills in the details of, growing up in Haiti for 16 years, and the things he saw and the things he didn't see. And, he kind of said, kind of Americans don't have, and he was American, but, American culture doesn't have the understanding of the rich history that is Haiti. And so I was glad I was able to find this book. I would recommend it. And, I think that's everything I want to say about it. So it's cultural voodoo being integrated with the culture. A little bit more about voodoo, I guess, and then I'll close out the video. I didn't know what voodoo meant. You have lots of misunderstandings of what it is. People say it's like an evil, casting curses, and have the voodoo doll that you poke holes in, and that's meant to hurt your enemy. All that stuff is true and a part of it. I don't think it's evil. I think it's an understanding. It's a difference. It's not really a religion in the way that we think of it. There's not followers of voodoo. It just is. and you have shamans, you have women that, just as a culture, they kind of just know that so-and-so who lives in that house is just naturally good with plant medicine, and they have the spirit within them. So we just follow what they say, because from a baby, they've always been, in touch with the Loa. So, and Davis asks, like, what if that person's telling lies? And the Haitians go, no, we'd be able to tell. Like, they're not telling lies. Like, that person is in touch with the voodoo. So they looked at him like, that's a stupid question. You need to, like, drink more rum and stay with us longer, and you'll see. So I loved it. Yeah, random book, 1985. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and please, like, interact in the comments, and let me know what you think. All right, till next time. Bye.